Welcome back. The former CEO of the Public Investment Corporation could face a Hawks investigation. Dan Matjila has been linked to several damning allegations relating to a deal with SA Home Loans. At the same time, Standard Bank's Ian Sinton has testified. Sinton says Kgolofelo Maponya wasn't a suitable BE consortium to buy a 25% stake at SA Home Loans. He says Matjila favoured Maponya's company and even approved an additional 10 billion rand, which he interpreted as a bribe.
In the last quarter of 2018, Mr. Kevin Penwarden, the CEO of SA Home Loans, asked to consult with me in person about developments that he described as being of a highly sensitive and concerning nature. I and colleagues from the bank met with him and the SA Home Loans Company Secretary as a result of that request. They informed us that in September 2018, and at a time when SA Home Loans was awaiting a response to the 10 billion rand loan application, Mr. Masakeza and Mr. Maponya, acting together, informed a senior executive of SA Home Loans that they had been authorized by Dr. Matjila to inform SA Home Loans that approval of the application for the additional 10 billion was conditional upon SA Home Loans agreeing to pay out of the proceeds 95 million rand to MMI as an origination fee. They explained that this was made up of the 45 million rand not paid in 2016, as set out above, plus another 50 million rand, i.e. 0.5% of 10 billion rand for the 10 billion rand facility under consideration. Madam Commissioner, my recommendation to Mr. Penwarden at the time was that he should not accept this as sort of second-hand information, that he should contact Dr. Matjila directly and ask for confirmation of this. And then I go on to say elsewhere that he should also consult with SA Home Loans' own lawyers to get clear advice as to what to do in the context of this, because it certainly was possible to interpret this information as a solicitation of a bribe.
Let's get more on this and bring in eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos, who's been following the PIC inquiry. Heidi, so this all has to do with SA Home Loans, Kgolofelo Maponya, and this money, which Ian Sinton says he believes was a bribe. How did that come about?
I must just say that today was extremely complicated, but this is a matter that has been brought up before. We heard earlier this week about how Kgolofelo Maponya, who has a 25% stake in SA Home Loans, was demanding a transaction origination fee. This is what he calls it. So he basically wants the PIC to pay him money for bringing the deal onto the PIC's table. But the reason why this is so irregular, and the reason why Standard Bank is saying this is so irregular, is because Kgolofelo Maponya approached the PIC for this loan. So he went and he asked the PIC, please can you give me 9 billion rand? I would like to buy a stake into SA Home Loans. But on the back of that, he wants basically a kickback. He wants to be paid for basically buying the 25% stake, but being funded by the PIC. So today we heard from Standard Bank where Ian Sinton basically saying, look, this is irregular. We do not see this as a way in which this transaction should be done. And Kgolofelo Maponya saying that he was authorized. I mean, if you just read the statement from today, he was authorized by Dan Matjila to receive 96 million rand. And the only way that SA Home Loans is going to be able to get an additional funding from the PIC is if the 96 million rand is paid to Kgolofelo Maponya. So that is obviously now being taken up with the Hawks. SA Home Loans has decided to take that information to the Hawks for them to probe further. And the people that have been implicated is Dan Matjila, Roy Rajda, Wellington Masiseka, as well as Kgolofelo Maponya. 3 of those being PIC staff. And
just on that note about the Hawks, at this stage, have the Hawks been able to confirm, or has the Hawks been able to confirm whether an investigation will indeed go ahead? Will they pursue this case is what I'm asking.
Well, the big question is, does the Hawks even know about this? Because when I approached the Hawks this afternoon to find out where the case is, what exactly is going on. They said they have no idea about the case, but they said they will look deeper into it. Perhaps they're just not aware of it right now. But this is something that's quite serious, because this is the first time that we've heard that Dan Matjila has been referred to the Hawks, because he's been heavily implicated throughout this commission. And here you have Standard Bank and SA Home Loans saying, we are not going to give this 96 million rand to Kolofelo Maponya, who's a director in SA Home Loans, just because it was authorized by then CEO Dan Matjila. So we'll wait to hear from the Hawks to see whether or not they will probe, whether or not they will investigate further.
Interesting that we're hearing today from Ian Sinton from Standard Bank, because he's a familiar name. His previous appearance at an inquiry was at the state capture inquiry, where he testified about things to do with the Guptas. Now that he's testified at the PIC inquiry about this particular BE transaction, how much more are we expecting Standard Bank to reveal as far as monies that shifted around between the various parties linked to the PIC mess?
Well, you do hear in his statements, I mean, he started off his statement where he said he feels as though it's important for Standard Bank to give their version, because they feel that key evidence and key information has been left out from PIC staff when it comes to the SA Home Loans transaction. So the reason why Standard Bank took the stand today was because they own 50% of SA Home Loans. So they are directly involved in that transaction. They were the ones that approached government employees' pension funds via the PIC to get another company to buy the other half of SA Home Loans when JP Morgan needed to sell its stake when the global financial crisis happened in 2008, 2009. So you will most likely hear from Standard Bank later on, specifically related to SA Home Loans, because we do understand that there is actually a board meeting underway between SA Home Loans, Standard Bank, as well as the PIC, related specifically to this 96 million transaction origination fee that Kolofelo Maponya is demanding. So we will most likely hear from Standard Bank again if the Commission feels as though they need more answers and more clarity on this matter, and perhaps to see what has actually happened in this board meeting and if the Hawks is going to take any action.
What are the chances that Dan Matjila will at any point appear before the Commission, given that his name is such a central theme in the allegations that are coming out of this inquiry?
He will most definitely testify. We've actually heard it from the Commission itself that Dan Matjila is expected to take the stand. He's expected to take the stand last because he's so heavily implicated. Almost every single person that comes to testify implicates Dan Matjila, because he was the CEO, because he was so heavily involved, because before he was the CEO, he was the CFO. So he has been heavily involved in all the transactions, all the investments that the Commission is trying to investigate, that the Commission is trying to understand why the PIC decided to invest into certain companies, why the PIC decided to give certain loans, for example, to Kolofelo Maponya into various companies. I mean, Kolofelo Maponya seems to be the sweetheart in this deal, because he has been given so many loans time and time again for various companies. So he will definitely testify.